Hey there, challengers. So today we are going to talk about changing your conversation with money. So I want to start to tell you my journey with turning my finances around. So back when I had Cannon, he's 5 years old, my finances were in a mess. So here's the real and truth of it. I had about $2,600 worth of bills a month, and I was only making about $800 or $1,200 after I had him. Now, I had just come off of maternity leave. I went back to the hospital and started doing newborn photography again, which I loved, but it just didn't pay any money. And I got to a point to where my rent was about 5-6 months behind. My car payment was behind. Throughout my journey, I've literally had to hide that car 3 or 4 times just to keep it from being repossessed. That's how bad my finances have been over the years. And of course, my credit score was, I don't even know if there's such thing as having a credit score as low as I had, but I guess so, since there was a score, it was just really, really low. And I was struggling to do the simple things of, buy groceries, buy gas. I often tell a story about how broke I was when Cannon was a baby. I had bald tires on my car, and there was 2 tires that had a leak at the same time. I didn't even have money to go put air in my tire. I had to run by Papa's house and let him air them up with his air tank. And I mean, it was just a real struggle. And, I was like, I didn't know how I was going to turn my finances around. I knew I needed to change my conversation with money, but quite frankly, I didn't know how. And so fast forward a little bit, my finances were still in an upheaval, but about 3 years ago, I ended up with a job that I did not even apply for. That's right, a job I did not even apply for. God knew what I needed, even when I didn't know what I needed. And I was so skeptical about taking this job because I'm like, they're not going to pay me enough money. And well, at the time, anything would have been better than what I had now, but I was going to be more full-time and still didn't feel like I was going to be making enough money. Well, little did I know, the most important life lessons that I would ever learn came from accepting that position 3 years ago. So I take this job, and something insane occurred my very first week on the job. They handed me a credit card that had a limit of over $100,000. Well, at that time, I'm thinking about being responsible for anything pertaining to 6 figures. Didn't seem like that was ever going to be a possibility for me. Like, me, over $100,000? Well, that didn't mean that I was going to charge up $100,000, but still, it felt like a huge responsibility. It was almost like I was carrying like a valuable around in my purse, like something that, I don't know. I was nervous and in awe and just, all kinds of things, all kinds of crazy emotions were running through my head because that kind of money just was not a reality in my life. So, first week on the job, they hand me a credit card with over $100,000 limit, and there was still some things needed for this building that I was going to be managing. Well, during that first week, I whipped out that credit card, and I spent $50,000 in 1 week. I was like, wow. I just spent $50,000 in 1 week. I spent more money in 1 week than I was making for the entire year. 1 week. And then I had quite a bit more shopping to do. There was a lot of decor that needed to be done. And so, I was going to the at-home store. I was going to JCPenney's. I was shopping online. I was doing all these different things. And something occurred to me, something very, very interesting. As I'm making all these purchases, it felt very different because I was not having to worry about where the money was coming from. I wasn't even thinking about it. Now, like always, I am budget conscious and I always look for the best deals, but it wasn't like I had to pick and choose. There was stuff that needed. I just took the card and went and bought it. But what I realized is that through this process, I felt very different. It felt very freeing. I don't even know if that's a word, but we'll go with that. You know what I mean? That, I needed something, I just went and got it. And it was in that moment that I realized that that's what people had been telling me about having a better conversation with money. So even though I still didn't really have any money, I made a decision to shop differently. I made a decision to think differently. Because here's the thing, what I want you all to understand is that money is just paper. That's all it is. It's an instrument to get you the things that you want. That's all it is. So why do we feel oftentimes like it's hard to get, or it's difficult to pay for things that we want? So I know that sounds extremely simple, and it did not happen for me overnight. Like I said, that was 3 years ago. But what I did do is I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to have a real and true conversation with myself about my finances. Remember the sheets that I gave you guys, the spreadsheet that I gave you to just start plugging in what you're spending every month. And then at the end of this 27 days, I hope that you did log all of your spending. It takes a little discipline. I know I've thrown a ton of stuff at you, but this is so important because let's face it, having more than enough money gives you a type of freedom that a lot of us have never experienced before. And it is a part of your overall wellness. You can't be wealthy and be sick. You can't be wealthy and be broke. You can't be wealthy and be out of shape. Wealthy is an overall package deal. If you're truly wealthy, you are giving attention and energy to every part of your wellness. Financial is a huge part of that. So I gave you this spreadsheet. If you guys did what I told you to do, at the end of 27 days, you're going to have a snapshot of what you're spending money on. That is the same spreadsheet I created for myself, and I got real honest with, okay, where do I spend too much money? Where can I cut something out? Where can I, where I've eased up a little bit of spending over here, where is something where I can save some money or invest some money? So for a few months, I started keeping up with exactly what I was spending. I started cutting some little things out, being a little wiser with my money. Now, this was not just about pinching pennies. It was about looking at my finances in a different way. Looking at where I was just late fees. That's a huge thing. I do not ever pay a late fee anymore. It was hard to make that transition of paying everything on time, but if you can pay it late and then add a late fee to it, then you can pay it on time. You just have to be a little more disciplined, cut some things out, and figure out where you can create those little scenarios where you can get a leg up instead of somebody always getting a leg up on you, okay? So I started that spreadsheet, started figuring out where I could cut some costs, the late fee I was spending on my car payment was huge. I was spending a lot of money on late fees for my car payment. I was paying it late every single month. I couldn't help it. I didn't have no money. So I started cutting all of those, anything I could cut out that would allow me to put money somewhere else, to save money, invest money. Then I got a stash account. Seems like a little bitty thing. And at the time it was, because I think I started with like $15 initially. And I'll get back into my stash account in just a minute. But stash, and this is something else that I'm going to teach you guys heavily about. But I started a little stash account and I started investing with like $15. And I was taking very little money and putting it over into my stash account, but it was something. And that money was a little harder for me to get to. So if I didn't have enough money for my electric bill, or I didn't have the money to pay something right then, I was having to wait for my next check. That money was a little bit too hard for me to get to. So that money just kept growing in my stash account. Then I pulled my credit report. My credit report was scary. It was really scary. But when I sat down and started analyzing my credit report, like, okay, who do I owe money to? Who can I make deals with? How can I start to figure some of this stuff out? Well, what you need to realize is that most places will take less than half of what you actually owe for a bill. And sometimes they'll even allow you to make payments on said whatever bill it is. They'll even let you make payments on less than half of it. Why wouldn't anybody do that, right? So I started working on my credit score, and it has taken me a long time to do it. But the biggest thing that I did was, instead of feeling like I had to wrap my mind around grocery shopping, I had to wrap my mind around school clothes shopping, anything that I was shopping for, I had to remember, like, God, this is just an instrument. That's all it is. And while I may not be able to buy that right now, I'm not going to allow myself to feel that scarcity, that scary feeling of there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. So if you'll think about all of the exercises that I've been putting you guys through for your mental health, increasing your wealth, it starts with a mental health journey. And it does not happen overnight. But guys, you have got to start seeing money differently. The only difference between my finances and that very large credit card that I had that belonged to someone else was that they took those steps to change their conversation about money. And they started doing things with their money that I wasn't doing with mine. They used some discipline, they used some intelligence, and they were very consistent and very intentional with where they put their money. Now, do you always want to have to watch every little dime that you spend? No, and I don't. Do you want to have to, constantly cut out things that you like to do so that you'll have just a little bit of money to invest? No, and I don't. But in the beginning, it took some discipline. It took some shifting my focus and awareness. So, even though I still didn't have a whole lot of money, I would walk into the store like I was shopping with that very high-end credit card. I would walk in the store, and the way I walked and talked and asked for assistance in the store was completely different when I was carrying a credit card with a $100,000 limit. It was very different. So what I did was I adopted that. I adopted that mentality. I adopted that mindset. Now, what can you do to establish that kind of a mindset and start to change your conversation about money? Maybe you're not going to be as fortunate for somebody to hand you a credit card with a $100,000 limit and say, here, I trust you. Go make some purchases for our business. So what are some things that you can do? Guys, you've got to be very intentional. I've taught you about meditation. I have taught you about forgiveness. This week we're working heavily on gratitude. Gratitude is one of the biggest game changers you'll ever have in your life. And I'm not talking about, the reason I have baby stepped you guys is because I don't want you to get in the mode of doing a to-do list. Okay, I got to meditate. Okay, I got to pray. Okay, I got to do forgiveness. Okay, I got to do gratitude. I don't want it to be a laundry list of to-do items. All of these things, there was a purpose for it, a reason for it. And these are the things that I did that ultimately changed my life. So, a snapshot of where I am today. That car that I nearly lost several times is paid off. I've bought a house by myself. Credit score good enough to buy a house by myself. I don't watch my spending. I am very intentional with my saving, my tithing, and my investing. But I don't haggle over every penny that I spend. Cannon and I take a couple of trips a year Nobody pays for that for me. I pay mine and Cannon's part. Even if we're on a group with someone else, I pay mine and Cannon's part. Sometimes I pay things for other people, not because I have to or they need me to, just because I love them and that's what I want to do. I don't skimp on things for my house. I've done a lot of things to the house since I moved in, and I continually do things to the house. I do those things on my own. And guys, I'm here to tell you, you can do the same thing. Now, not everybody that's a part of our challenge, you may not have financial struggles. You may have your finances figured out. You may live in a really nice house. You may have your career figured out, but not all of us do. And I'm talking to those of you that are struggling to save a few dollars in 27 days. I don't want that to be the story for you forever. I want you to have financial freedom. And I'm growing my wealth and changing my finances and doing better every single week. I'm always looking for ways to do a little better, to make more money, to pay less in fees or whatever. Because anything that I learn, it's also something I can always teach to someone else. And so I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always, paying something off. I'm always, trying to buy something that's going to help me to, have a good debt and help me to build my credit score even higher. So it's a constant journey for me. But I want that for you guys. I want you to experience being able to if you want something, just go buy it. Don't worry about it. If you need something for your house or something breaks down, just fix it. Just go get what you need, right? So I hope that this video was helpful. Financial changes, they do not happen overnight. I would love to coach you guys further on this. Unfortunately, 27 days is just not long enough to go deep into recreating your finances. So I'm giving you tips and tricks and tools and things that I hope that you will utilize, and I hope that will make a difference for you. But honestly, guys, that's all I did. I changed my conversation with money. I just wanted something better. I wanted something more for me and my family, and I just refused. I refused to let that go. I was determined, and I stuck with it. And now I can say that my finances literally are 100% different than they were only 3 years ago. So I love you guys. You know that I do. If there's anything more that I could help you with on this particular topic, if you want to inbox me, you guys always know where to find me. Bye.